the next stage of that rebuild is going to be looking at central midfield players and also wing backs.
With the January transfer window just around the corner, I got in touch with ESPN's Rob Dawson, one of the most reputable and best informed journalists on the United beat, just to see what he was hearing about United's potential plans for this window and beyond.
Yeah, the thing that everyone wants to know all about all the time. Well, obviously we're going to have a January window opening relatively soon. I don't think that United right now are planning to do very much in January, and that follows on from their kind of long-term view of this process. In that, if something was to come up in January that they maybe weren't expecting, or a fantastic opportunity, or I don't know, say there's a run of injuries between now and January, or something were to happen, nothing has been ruled out. But I think all things being equal, United would prefer to do their business, if they can, in the summer. So there's every possibility that the January window comes and goes without any major incoming at Old Trafford, which I'm sure United fans may listen to this and go, I can't believe it. Why are they not doing everything they can to sign players? It's just not that easy. The January window is notoriously tough to sign players in. Next summer is a different matter because this summer they put an awful lot of their resources into the forward line. You know, obviously signed three players, Sesko, Cunha and Mbeumo, to help them score more goals, because an area that they decided that they weren't good enough last year, which is fair enough. The next stage of that rebuild is going to be looking at central midfield players and also wing backs. And I think most United fans could probably look at Man United and say those are two areas that the team are struggling with in terms of quality, first and foremost, and also depth. So it's two areas that they need to solve. The added thing about that is that, you know, people like Omar Barada, Jason Wilcox, all these guys who are involved in recruitment can look at that squad and say that we understand that this squad right now has got limitations because this is a phased rebuild. If it wasn't a phased rebuild, they may have said in the summer, I tell you what, we're not going to sign Cunha and Mbeumo. We're going to sign one, and we're going to use some of that money to buy a midfielder. And actually, we're also not going to sign Sesko. We're going to keep Højlund. We're going to keep Xerxes, and we're going to use that money to buy a wing back. And what they decided was that they weren't going to do that. They were going to try and get the right people to fit that forward line, on the understanding that there were other areas of the quad that needed solved. Now, the forward line in their mind has been fixed. So hopefully they'll have the resources, the opportunity to fix the other areas. And that means going to get first and foremost, a central midfielder. I think that's the main transfer target for next summer. And also get Ruben Amorim some established specialist wing backs, at least add some more depth in those areas. It's probably not until next summer that you're going to see something like a squad that will help Ruben. And so it follows on that you probably can't really judge him until this time next year, because you give him January, you give him next summer, then he has 10 or 11 games until November break, whenever it is, and then you see where they're at. And I think right now that's what Man United are hoping to be able to do. Obviously, these things change very quickly. You know, you've seen in the last week how things go up and down depending on results. Transfers are never set in stone. You know, opportunities arise, things that, you know, best laid plans get changed because your number one target isn't available. So things have to be kind of molded on the spot. But I think right now United are hoping to get January out the way, get some midfielders in next summer, get some wing backs, and then judge him a year from now. I think you get a far better idea of how equipped Ruben Amorim is to manage this club in November 2026 would be my opinion.
The way the world is now, there's no, for example, Chicharito was signed very cloak and dagger.
Yeah.
No one saw it coming. No one knew anything about it. Bebe, for instance, those transfers, they don't happen now, do they? There's very seldom smoke without fire. There's a lot of recurring names coming up. The three big ones in particular, Belieber, Wharton, and Elliot Anderson,
Yeah.
seem to be the likeliest targets, potentially even two of those three, with Anderson kind of elevated this week in respected circles as being the primary target. Is that your understanding as well?
Yeah, I mean, I think he would be the one. I mean, all three of those, there is work or has work been done to kind of assess them as options. You know, there was a little bit of stuff with Belabor in the summer that never really came to anything. Adam Wharton is someone that they've known about since he was at Blackburn, but Palace took their opportunity when they could, and it's obviously paid off massively for them. They would like to. United would like to sign younger English players if they can, because obviously it helps with the homegrown element of this, the way that you assemble a squad. They want players who they can bring in and they think have got a high ceiling. Wharton and Elliot Anderson would fit that bill. The difficulty is price tags of those players. Obviously, with young English players, there is a premium on them. There's going to be an awful lot of interest in Wharton and Anderson in particular, particularly Anderson, I think, next summer. It depends whether United are, well, I suppose back in Europe would be a key thing for both of those players. Both of them are playing in Europe this year, so why would they want to take a year off playing in Europe? They also want to be in and around the England squad. They want to be playing in a successful team, which, right now United aren't. But I suppose if you could get those players through the door, then that would elevate the entire team and the squad. There's also going to be a decision to make about how they allocate budget, because if they are back in Europe, obviously that would help the finances. I think United think that they are in a pretty good position financially, or certainly better than they were sort of 2 years, 18 months ago. So there is money there available to spend. I very much doubt that they could afford to spend 100 million on two central midfielders. So if you need to, then maybe it means that you go and get Wharton or Anderson for a best part of 100 million, and then you look at someone like Andre or João Gomez at Wolves that potentially would be cheaper, and that you supplement the squad with a signing like that. And then you need money also to sign a wing back, depending on who they decide to go for. I think the central midfield certainly is the big one. I think this summer you saw that the entire window essentially was based around Mbeumo. I think Cunha was more of an opportunity. Mbeumo was the one that they want and decided that they were going to go and get. I think it's likely that they would put Wharton or Anderson as that kind of central, pivotal kind of signing of the summer, and then build the rest of the window around that. It's going to be tough, but they certainly need someone in. And I actually think if you were to get someone like Anderson, that immediately the squad looks massively different, doesn't it? It just looks completely different. And then I think you can start seeing the entire kind of picture take shape. So it's not easy, and it is tough to get these kind of signings over the line, but I think at least United have shown in the last year maybe that there is a change of direction with recruitment, that not only are they trying to sign the right players, they're trying to avoid signing the wrong players, which sounds daft, but they've done it an awful lot. I mean, you'll know as well as I do that they've done it an awful lot over the last sort of 10 years. So if they can do that, if they can continue avoiding those kind of signings, those kind of panicked signings, and also put their resources and their focus on one big signing and then build the rest of the window around that, like an Anderson or a Wharton, I think that's a massive step forward.
And then in terms of wing backs, are you hearing left, right, or both?
Well, they've signed a left wing back, obviously, in Patrick Dorgu. I mean, I think the idea would be to sign a right wing back first and foremost. Obviously, they would like someone who could play on both sides. Ruben Amorim has said before that he quite likes players who can play in a number of different positions. You've seen Dalot can play on both sides. Dorgu has been used on the right. I think he thinks that maybe Ahmad could even play on either side. He's actually said today in his news conference that ideally he would like someone like Ahmad on the other side, and that tells you the type of player that he is looking for. At Sporting Lisbon, his system obviously depended on two very, very good inside forwards at 10 and a striker in Gyökeres who was scoring every week, but also his wing backs primarily were wingers, really, not fullbacks. And now the way that he's playing at Man United, that he's using fullbacks as wing backs rather than wingers, if you exclude Ahmad. So I think it would be someone who is a bit more forward thinking than perhaps Dorgu and Dalot. The difficulty is with wing back especially is there aren't that many specialist wing backs about, because not many clubs play with that system. So and I don't think it's necessary. You can't just stick a fullback in there and think he's going to do fine, because I just think it's a really specialised position. So I think that wing back one may change depending on the targets that arrive. There's been talk of even looking at someone like Semenyo possibly and having him play as a wing back, which would be quite interesting given the role he's got at Bournemouth at the moment. So I think the wing back one is a lot more difficult, possibly, than the central midfielder one, because obviously there are players who play in the centre midfielders who you can see slotting straight into that team straight away. With wing back, I think it's a little bit different, and it'll take an awful lot of work to decide what kind of profile you want, whether that player is available, is that player even playing in that position for his club at the moment. So there's an awful lot, probably perhaps more work will need to go into signing a proper wing back than it does in signing a central midfield player.
Awesome. And just finally then, Rob, obviously, we're spending the club's money here and in our minds. Where's it coming from? Hopefully European qualification, but obviously there's some contract situations, a couple of players maybe not fit in the system all that well. Where do you see the outgoings?
Well, there's going to be, I mean, United, I think, would like to think they're going to clear quite a lot off their wage bill. Rashford going, he's one of the top earners, would be big. Jadon Sancho, we expect to go again, another one of the big earners. There are obviously contract situations bubbling with Harry Maguire and Casemiro. Casemiro is an interesting one because I think maybe 18 months ago everyone would just assume that he was going to go. He's one of the club's top earners. He's at a certain age. The way he's battled back into that team, I think, has raised the possibility that possibly he could stay. Now, he will only be allowed to stay if he agrees a significant cut in wages, because, as I say, he is one of the highest earners, perhaps the highest earner at the club at the moment. And that depends on whether he wants to do that or not. I'm assuming that he'll have big offers from Saudi. He'll probably be able to get that similar wage in Saudi. So it's whether he wants to stay and play in a more competitive league in the Premier League, or go off to Saudi and earn more money. So that's, I think, a decision between him and the club. I would be surprised right now if he stayed, but I don't think it's been completely ruled out. So if he does go, it's more money off the wage bill. In terms of other outgoings, I mean, the squad is so tight, really, that there aren't that many other options. The ones you'd look at would be Mainu and Xerxes, simply because they're not really playing that much. But obviously they've been linked with outgoings in January. But the way Man United have put it to us is that they're not out in the cold. They're not training with the kids and not involved at all. They might not be central in terms of involvement in the team, but they are quite key to the squad, and they're on the bench every week. And we've seen with Xerxes that it only takes a couple of injuries and suddenly he's starting games. So he's someone, and him and Mainu in particular, who would need replaced. So it's difficult. I think United, even if there are no major outgoings, they would fancy the chances of having the money to spend, not massive money, but enough money in the next summer's window. And we saw what they did this summer. There was lots of talk at the start of the year, like, they didn't qualify for the Champions League, and Sir Jim Radcliffe had said they were going to be broke by Christmas, and that people assumed that they wouldn't have the money to spend. Well, Omar Barada actually deserves an awful lot of credit in the way that he managed that window, because he squeezed every single penny out of that window that he possibly could. And I would expect him to be able to do something similar next summer. Obviously, it would help if they were in Europe, clearly. But if he can get the right players off the wage bill, I'm sure that there'll be money there to spend and go into the market properly for a Wharton or a Elliot Anderson type.